And the lights, 4 lights, really lit that thing up nicely.
I love the picture with the lights. That was great. Oh, it was so bright.
Can you see them from your house, Don, or no?
No, I haven't really looked. But I don't think so.
And the lights, 4 lights, really lit that thing up nicely.
Yeah.
Oh,
I drove around it the other night just to see it when it was lit up for the other late afternoon. And I was impressed by the number of people that were down there.
Yeah, me too. When Matt hooked it up and I went down there, I mean, I don't know how long he had the lights up, but it was like moths to a flame. There was like 10 people down there.
People have been there waiting for me to unlock the gate almost every time.
I actually had someone ask me about if we have lessons available, and I said, well, based on the popularity, maybe we'll work on that.
We have a few kids who've been skating down there, and they're seniors in high school, and and one's a junior in high school. And I asked them if they would be interested in helping out with kids. I have a few 5-gallon buckets down there that are good for kids. Like you flip them over top and you push them around.
I think that would be a good thing because I saw you doing that with your daughter. If you posted a clip on how to use those buckets on that ice rink page, and then people might, see that that's what they're for. Because I thought that was genius because I've never actually gotten the chance to teach ice skating. And then I was like, dude, the bucket idea is so smart.
Well, it doesn't affect the ice and it keeps their weight forward and it's like a perfect balance point. So.
Okay, cool. So we have Kelly in as well. Nice.
Let me see. Let me get Alice as a co-host.
Hi there. Thank you.
Okay. You're a co-host now.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
And everybody's here, Alice.
Excellent. So I will, oops, wait a minute. Launch meeting. Allow. All right. I'm going to mute.
All right. All right, here we go. We're recording. I'd like to open this meeting. This is a town board workshop meeting of January 18th, 2021. And the sole topic of the meeting for tonight is the Recreation Department redo. Michael Cooper, our director, has requested that we reorganize it. And I want to call your attention to page 5 of the letter, which I put on your email. I sent on your email, because that's where the reorganization part of this starts, of the Recreation Committee. So just to recap, we disbanded the Recreation Committee at the last meeting officially so that we could reorganize it and create. Kelly's camera's not working. She can't participate from YouTube, so just so you know, but if she can talk.
Well, I was saying for the audio, she might be able to listen.
It's always behind.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the problem. So she really needs to get in here. I don't know what to say. I think
I can hear you guys. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you. That's great, Kelly. So you just, if you can just listen and then speak if we ask you any questions, that'd be great.
It just keeps saying failed to start video camera. So I'm just going to play with it, but I am listening.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, so we're all here. And Michael, do you want me to read this part of your letter or do you want to just recap?
I think we can kind of just go from it. I think everybody's aware of it.
Right.
That I think that we need to make a couple changes to how recreation's run and, make it easier and more accessible for people in the community to bring forth ideas and get some new people in and just get fresh ideas. I was initially on the rec committee before I became director. And when I joined the committee, there really wasn't that much structure. And then, you know, as time went on, there were people who had joined the committee and then, you know, just kind of disappeared with no communication between other members. And then down the road, as I got into this, it was kind of the same thing. You know, we'd have 1 or 2 new people kind of come to the first 2 meetings, and then it was, you know, we never saw them again. And I don't know the reasoning for that for everybody in all those cases, but I know myself personally, when I joined, it was just kind of me just seeing what the existing members were doing, and there was no kind of guidelines in terms of, you know, what was expected of us. And I always think it's helpful to have expectations, and I think it would make sense for us to make the committee more structured and follow what our other committees do.
Great.
Yeah.
In light of that, do you want to start with your ideas for,
I saw Rory talking over there, but I don't think he knows he's muted.
About I was muted. I just, Michael, you expressed yourself so eloquently in your letter. It might be worth reading that, Dara, if people are listening and haven't had the benefit of the larger framework that he lays out for the structure of the.
well, that's exactly where I was going.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
Yeah.
Do you want me to read it, or you can read it, or?
I just want to say, I thought your chart of the budget was very, very useful. And I really appreciated your putting that down on paper. It really, we get a much better sense of what this whole thing is made up of. So
Yeah,
thank you.
because I mean, I really wanted to make sure like I could receive as much input from you guys as possible, and then see if it was just something I was missing, and then just kind of give you my perspective. So I'm glad it was clear. Do you want me to read it from, let me see.
I was thinking that second paragraph on page 5. Is
Yep.
that okay, Rory? Is that,
No, that's exactly where you had mentioned before. I just thought
okay,
it was.
all right, great, excellent.
And that flow chart, is
One
pretty nice
second.
to look at too, if we could all look at that together, the one that Sarah was talking about. If anyone has any questions on that. So I like that flow chart as well, Sarah. Are you talking about the
Okay.
flow at the end, Sarah?
I was talking about the chart that has the actual budget items
I like the,
and who
Oh.
controls them.
okay, perfect.
So here we go. I'll find page 5 real quick. So in this letter, I said right here, the next topic I'd like to cover is the Recreation Committee. I have been unable to find a document stating their roles and responsibilities as members of the committee. It is my understanding that they provide the director with ideas for programs and are a point of contact for community members who also have ideas. They would also be involved as volunteers to help run our programs. Currently, the committee meets once a month, and an attendance of those meetings ranges from 1 to 5 of our 6 members. Since joining the committee in 2016, there has been 3 members who have joined and then quit or rescinded their request to join. To become a member of the committee currently, you would write a letter of interest. Then the rec committee decides if the applicant is accepted, and if accepted, the recreation committee presents the applicant to the town board. I think this should be changed, and that anybody interested in joining should write their letter to the town board and let the board determine who is on the committee. That way, if someone wants to get involved but might have differing views than the majority of the members on the committee, they still get the opportunity to have those views represented. I also believe there should be terms for our committee members. Right now, there is no limit to how long somebody is a committee member for. Other towns have limits of 2 to 4 years before a committee member must apply again. I think a 2-year term would be the best and allow more people to get involved. Every 2 years, you would reapply to remain a committee member, and that would allow others to step in. This would allow parents of kids in our program to take part in what we do, or senior citizens who have grandchildren or want to be a part of the planning process of the programs they use. It would present us with more fresh ideas and diversify what we offer. I have several ideas on how we can implement this change and would be open to discussing them. And then that kind of leads into where we are now.
Right.
Because
Okay.
like I said, I think it's important that I don't think it makes sense the way it was set up or the way we were running it, where the committee picks who's on the committee. I feel like that's not really the best way to do it. And I think, you know, as adults, people should be able to apply, and then, you know, it doesn't really matter who's on it.
Agree.
Well,
Discussion.
originally, about one couple points I'd like to ask if I could. Have you had any other luck in
Or program, and then it was really just the single director. And then I think over the years, you know, rec director became a more prominent role, and then obviously, you know, a committee makes sense to advise that type of program. But I wasn't able to find any type of thing on that. And if there was, the process for me joining the committee was completely different than it was for the first person I saw join the committee. And then it was different between that person and the next person. So there was just never any, like, I was like, oh, this, like, so this is how I got on the committee. And then they changed how other people got on the committee. And I was like, oh, this is just being made up as it goes along. So, and I think that might be discouraging to some people, because they're like, whoa, I don't know what I'm getting into, and there's no structure to it.
Right. Okay. What else? What other questions do you have?
on that? How large a committee do you think is appropriate?
I think 7 is a good, healthy number for a committee.
Mhm.
Because there's a lot of different things that recreation does. We provide programs to adults as well as kids. And then there are different things that recreation encompasses. It encompasses the waterfront and the beach stuff that we do, different sports that we do, programs at the community center, different things like that. And, you know, coordination with the school for different events. I think having a team of 7 people motivated to, you know, improve our programs or help them run is a good number.
Will you guys have mechanisms that allow for people or parents to get involved and volunteer and participate without having to be a committee member as well?
Yes, and that's a big thing. So I feel like in the past, as I got on the committee, it seemed that the only way to be involved with rec programs was if you were on the committee. There wasn't much representation of, you know, the T-ball coaches putting their stuff together, or our travel basketball coaches. It was really just, you know, 3 or 4 people on the committee dictating how programs were run. After going through COVID and seeing some of our leagues not be able to be run, or, you know, not having that level of community support that is necessary for programs to happen, I know it's super important to be able to have people not on the committee involved. And that's why having these 7 members makes it, especially if they're motivated and, you know, focused on programs, is we can do subcommittees and we can manage, you know, other types of organizations. Because when we didn't have the chance to, you know, play baseball with other people in town, for our youth boys ages 9 to 12, you know, there were really only 2 or 3 parents available to help with coaching and running that team. And then there was nobody to facilitate games with in other towns. So I think it's really important that we can get other people involved besides just committee members. And this kind of having not really quick, but having the ability for people to be in and out kind of expands the networks of people that we can work with. You know, looking at some of the applicants we've had so far, there's a lot of different things and connections that people have that, you know, I wouldn't even have seen the connection.
So will you solicit help from volunteers directly, or do you look for people to come forward, those non-committee members?
So when I first started, it was, you know, existing people would come forward and say, hey, this was, you know, I'm interested. At first meetings of programs, I would always announce like, hey, we need volunteers for these several roles. If you're interested, please send me an email or come talk to me right now as the program ends. But I'm going to be doing a lot more outreach because I especially now with the way everything is, if we can get more people involved to be able to do smaller group things, that still allows us to do different programs and activities.
I think if you do have the people around too, soliciting that, you know, those professionals in their thing is the way to go, you know, so.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, a huge thing too is like my brother and our friend Tyler aren't on the committee, but they both were helping with the high school basketball. And, you know, I was like, hey, are you guys interested in volunteering? And then they also brought people that they knew in to come and do stuff. And I mean, even baseball, softball, like having outside people, it just doesn't happen with, you know, 4 or 5 people running everything.
What would that 7-member, say it is, committee's role be in helping inform what happens at the beach and at camp?
So my thought is when you have different committee members, so I was looking through different applicants, but they can kind of be a liaison between myself, because some people might be parents of kids at a different age where different needs of camp is something important to them, or maybe they're involved in the senior programs and some adult recreation, and they want the garden club to be able to do certain things with the beachfront. Having that extra voice for somebody to reach out to and say, hey, like, I noticed we could, you know, maybe see if we can get a staff member to water the plants more, because that's something that matters to that segment of the community. So different things like that. Also, the possibility of like a playground committee, which we did set up initially. We had a committee member as the chair of that subcommittee, and then that committee member ended up being one of the ones that kind of just fell off the grid. So it's one of those things where having a committee that's focused and organized then allows more voices to be heard, because you can do subcommittees and stuff like that kind of just gets that input out there.
So when I look at, you did the other flow chart there towards the end of what you had sent us, and it has some of the back and forth of how the town board and your role relate to the committee itself. I guess I asked that stuff about the beach and the camp, just wondering what input, thinking that perhaps there might not be much, the committee itself might be having on those two functions specifically, just because I was unsure after having looked at the flow chart there.
Yeah, so when I made that flow chart, it was kind of me also asking like what your guys' expectations is for me in my position, because there had been, you know, like I said, different things going on and things always changing in terms of the procedure. And my understanding of the recreation committee being a part of that advisory role is what it helps is so the yellow line on that chart is literally them bringing attention to me, like concerns of the community or something, a program that someone wants to be run, or something like when we talked about lights, like that was a big thing that a lot of people in the community talked about. They told me, I relayed it to you guys, and so different ideas like that. Then the blue charts would also be, you know, they use the beach, they use the facilities, they go down there. Maybe they're not hands-on because baseball isn't their specialty and they let the other committee members handle it, but they might be at a different field where the other committee members are and see like, hey, like, you know, I think we need more support here for this volunteer. So they kind of are able to be extra eyes and ears for me in terms of executing programs as well as finding available opportunities.
When we brought this up before, Michael, I had expressed my opinion at that time that I really wanted you to be the commissioner of recreation and everybody else could be a director. I sort of like one person it flow back to the town board through one person. And
Yep.
so you'd have all these sub-directors, like your beach director, camp director, and whatever else. Those are the two main ones, but, you know.
Yeah,
there's
and
always-
there, oh,
I'm
sorry. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's basically you've got two flow charts, and both of them, the recreation director is not necessarily the one person in charge. The one smaller flow chart has, camp director, beach director, and recreation director is sort of as equal, equal access to and from the town board. And I find that awkward. I really would like to see,
And I agree with that. The reason I put the flow chart like that
right.
was because when my first year, and I included it in the letter, my first year we didn't have a beach director because the year before
Yeah.
there were some issues with the beach director and the rec director,
Mhm.
and then I ended up getting lifeguard certified, taking the lifeguard management course, literally doing everything you need to do based on the old job description of beach director in order to be both rec director and beach director. And then the decision for the person to become beach director, and it was a good decision that you guys made, but I just didn't get any say or input to give you guys before that decision was made. So that way there we could talk about, what our expectations for the beach director would be. Obviously you pick somebody who knows what they're doing, and they were down there, but because I was kind of out of the loop in terms of, who was being picked and why they were being picked, I just wasn't sure, if you guys pick this person, obviously you believe in their ability to execute their budget and do that kind of stuff. But I also, and that's why I wrote the letter, was because do you want me to be, the one that relays directly to you and overseeing everything that they're doing? Or if you're going to be selecting these people without my input, do you want to just have them run those programs that we're putting them in charge of? And I'm not saying my input needs to be that important. I just felt like, this person is qualified to do what they're doing. And I wasn't sure where I fell in the chain of command in that instance.
Well, is the camp its own entity anyway? Like, doesn't the camp have its own budget and work on its own thing? Or is the camp part of the rec department?
So that's an excellent question. I mean, in terms of their budget and stuff like that, it is a recreation line item. But the camp has kind of done its own thing in terms of collecting the money, doing the stuff at the pavilion. I mean, a lot of the stuff that we do in recreation benefits the camp in terms of equipment and stuff like that. And my first year, what I tried to do, because we were having issues with the health department and the expenses of a lifeguard for the camp, as well as a lifeguard for the beach, I made sure that the lifeguard coverage at the beach was acceptable for a camp to use as a separate entity. And so it was one of those things where instead of us paying somebody to be a lifeguard at $18 an hour for the camp, I just made sure we had our lifeguards at $15 an hour, always on the chair during camp hours. Instead of us paying that $15 an hour lifeguard as well as an $18 an hour camp lifeguard, that literally just was a counselor getting paid, $8 to $10 more than the other staff. So, and that's a little bit different in terms of money, but that's kind of the way it's been, is the camp's always had the Lions Club. They do their own thing. They run their trips and stuff like that.
Well, that's been the basis, was my question.
Yep.
What I'm trying to do is to get that organization back to what it originally was intended to be. Not to have people running off in separate directions. And, so that I was hoping to get it under one person.
Yeah, and I'm okay with doing that.
Right.
And then, because I have a great relationship with the.
Yeah, I don't think she would have a problem with that either. If Mike had to do all the town board meetings for her, I don't think that she would complain about that.
I think it's really sort of historical that it just got set up sort of separately because the camp just got started at some point and it was never clearly under the rec. And I think it would be fine to have it under the rec.
I think it makes sense. I think that's part of why we're having this conversation tonight.
But maybe we should check with Jen before we make that change.
Well, that's the thing too, is because in some ways it's also probably easier for Jen if there is an immediate need for something that she's able to get that for the camp without me having to sign it. I'm okay with us both having to sign it, so that way there I check it before it goes up, and then I can, tell her, hey, this is a problem, this isn't a problem. But she's also well versed in that. I also remember when I first was the rec director, when I accepted the job, I was also under contract to teach in the Adirondacks for 2 weeks in the summer. And during those 2 weeks, I think Jen needed to make a purchase, and that kind of led to her being able to, sign that voucher and submit it as a director on her own. And so like, it's good that we were flexible, but then a lot of stuff just changed rapidly, and we never really established, the full order on what we wanted.
Well,
to do.
I'm not necessarily just talking about signing vouchers. I'm talking about, the representation to the town board for all projects that are coming out of the recreation line. And that
Yeah.
includes the seniors and the field trips and whatever else is sort of spun off on its own. I actually would really like you to be in charge of or coming through you, the use of the community center.
Yeah.
Maybe
And-
asking more than you want to get into, but
That is such a huge job, and it has to be dealt with on an almost daily basis at times. When Michael is teaching and the seniors that use the place when there's no COVID meet at noon on Wednesday, when Michael is not available to meet with them. Scheduling the community center and renting it out is it's rather large administration situation. You have to return the deposits, you have to take deposits, you have to get in touch with people when they don't get back to you, whether they're actually going to use the facility. They book, they cancel, it's, when we were really running, it was a very popular space. So I really don't see that as part of recreation. The community center's got to be administrated by the town hall. As to the seniors again, I mean, we're now, it's a different thing. It's not really recreation. It's I don't know what to call it, but
Wasn't there a senior recreation person who was paid, and then all of a sudden the one guy took the job and he donated the salary back because it was such a big, I believe he had a position that was just for the seniors who put all that stuff together, and it was a paid position because it was so much work.
I have no idea. It would have been a long time ago.
It was before us when the one guy took over, but I believe it used to be a paid position because it was so much work. And then I think that's when Kathy took it, right? Didn't Kathy take it over when you were first starting out there?
Kathy was doing it when I first started out, yes, and we have remained doing it in the office because, I mean, okay, we have to book trips. There's credit card use that's got to happen. Just finding the trips and negotiating with the seniors as to what they want to do. We have meetings with them to find out the things that they're interested in. We stay in touch with them. During COVID, we have stayed in touch with them to make sure everybody's okay. Do they need anything? We got a lot of them masks. It's bigger than rec. We do have adult classes for them. Now, the rec classes would be great if the recreation department could take over those. And Linda Wisdo taught a chair yoga. Dave Owens taught I don't know what you would call it, but it was kind of a interval training twice a week. Chair yoga was once a week. Those were the two paid sports for seniors. And then the community center welcomed people who were willing to do classes for free or a donation. And that was a separate situation.
Is
So
the bulk of the scheduling challenge the senior stuff, or is that 85, 90% of the scheduling is senior related programming?
for the community center,
Yeah, for the work of whoever's coordinating the community centers.
no, I would say it's 50% and 50%. Yeah, because almost every weekend right before COVID, almost every weekend, both days were taken up by a party, a wedding shower, a bridal shower, graduation parties for 2-year-olds in the rain, So it's really, it was used constantly.
The other thing I might add too, and like I said, I mean, I think that's going to be a determination that the board is going to decide in terms of how that gets handled. But at the same time too, is if we have that full committee, as well as, I have Kelly now, if the town hall, the way it has, schedules that community center hours and stuff, I mean, we can definitely help offer accessory programs. The other thing is too, there are some programs that recreation runs, quote unquote, that we actually don't run. So we had a professional soccer player run a camp out of our rec park. They managed the whole thing themselves. It gave something for the people in our community to do. And, we just made sure that when they wanted to use the fields, that the fields were available. We, like in recreation, we can also probably do that. It's just that there's other functions that the town uses that space for. I definitely would like to have, a dedicated slot of time for, rec to be using those facilities. But I also, when we make these changes, I don't think it'll be an issue coordinating, who's using it when do we want to run this program using the community center, when do the seniors want to use the beach, different things like that. So in terms of the structure and, that kind of stuff, like I said, that's going to be your guys' decision. And I think now, with even just the few changes we've made so far, I definitely think I'm more capable to handle that kind of stuff as well. So I'm not sure if that addresses your guys' concerns.
Yeah, I just think if the town secretary is coordinating the calendar and taking the money, it works out a lot better. She's there 8 hours a day. People can drop off the money. They need to sign a form. We kind of need to eyeball them.
And then there are key issues too. You have to have a key. Somebody has to get a key to get
A
in.
lot to deal with.
I mean, is somebody complaining, Don, about it not being run through the rec department, that it's being run through the town hall? Because it does
No,
like a lot of extra work.
the only,
I think he was referencing the fact that I don't technically have like a dedicated office space because
not only that, I mean, I don't think it should come under the supervisor's office. When it first started, Catherine was the one who was, the yes or no person, and Kathy was the one who said, I've got time, I can help you. And so that's when they were setting up the trips. But I mean, when we've talked before, there's always been talk of this rogue seniors meeting up there, like when they lost the room. And, that was upstairs, the dedicated room and things like that. So I'm just trying to understand actually what is happening. So that, it's just, that's what I say. But I really would like one person who answers to the board rather than the board not being involved in it at all. And as I say, I think that we've got to totally restructure our whole thinking on recreation and not just try to address just the committee at this point. So anyhow. That's my thoughts.
So you would like to see the seniors program put back underneath Michael's control?
Yes,
Not necessarily Michael, but someone's control who reports to the board, right?
That was a paid position at one point, so money would have to go back.
I never recall it as being a paid position.
I don't either.
I remember,
I don't think it was, I don't have any recall of that.
No.
I will check and I will see, but I believe it was.
The other thing is too, we can give it a run. I mean, this year, unfortunately, it's not looking like it's going to be much different than last year. And we can see how it works. And if it ends up not working the way we end up setting it up, then, we still have the power to change it. It's not going to be permanent forever. So, I mean, I'm open to doing that, making the community center available. And at the same time too, Dara has been super involved and been working really hard to keep those programs running. She can still do that. I just feel like it's a weird dynamic for me to then be like, okay, but I'm also fine with us, having discussions about, okay, this is the program we want to do and doing stuff like that. Because in the future too, 10, 20 years from now, I don't know if we're all going to be in the same positions we're in now, and you might want that structure more defined. So
I think we can define it very
So
easily.
hold on one second. Jen Mosier used to run it, and it was a paid program for the seniors.
But that was the HOP. And that was before the town got involved in it.
But the HOP wasn't paid by the town at one point?
No.
I don't
If
think-
Alice is going to continue doing the scheduling, Don, what if she and Dara's behalf, even if Dara's very involved, but Dara's not going to report to the board maybe on it, but could Alice not report to us on what's happening with that space in the meantime in a way that helped make it feel like you were and the board was being better informed?
Well, there's
about-
almost like, what I'm seeing here are two different, like the rec use of the community center sounds fabulous. And if the rec wants to take over senior sports, sports for seniors, which would be the yoga and the workout class so far, right? That's what we had before anyway. Stuff like that. That makes sense that Michael would do that. Booking the community center really has to be in the town hall secretary's office. So that's all. It's sort of like then Michael can work with the secretary to book the space on the hours when he's figured out what he wants to put in there. But booking the community center is more than just recreation. It's got a lot of components.
Well, I think recreation should be the principal use of the community center.
Well,
I don't think it is, though. I think that it's used for so many other things that
it's
other
not
than,
him.
I would say other than wrestling in the basement, the community center gets used for almost nothing for recreation.
I was also hoping to kind of change that because some of our committee members that have applied and showed interest in joining, I think we definitely can utilize that space. But I have no problem with the schedule being held by the town hall. But I also see the point that Don's making is like, I also think it makes sense for rec to have priority. So if someone has a program at the same time that we have a program already scheduled, I think it would make sense that we have precedent. I know that my brother, he does business with the town of Washington, and they have access to the gym and facilities. They can run schedules however they want, whenever they want. And then if the town has a function that they have scheduled during there, regardless of what they had scheduled or were planning, if the town would always have that priority. So in this function, I guess you could say if we were to do it here, rec would have that priority, and then the town hall just looks at the schedule and sees if there's any conflicts. And then we just kind of go from,
I just want to remind you that the library also uses the community center for lots of programs.
yeah, so to be able to kind of coordinate that both.
Yeah, when we were rolling without, you know, pre-COVID, they'd have a program, well, at least once a month, but often more than that upstairs.
If I may, one of the things too that I feel that should be put in is recreation isn't always just sports, and we're leaving out a huge community of kids that aren't sports minded. There's nothing to do after school for some of these kids. If you have the community center and you have chess club and you have kids that can do arts and crafts, if you can have a cooking club, if we can have a place for them to go, that is so helpful, and it opens it up to the community that is.
But it's always been open. So I keep wondering, okay, I think those are great ideas. Where's everybody been? Right? I've been in office 3 years. Nobody's proposed any of that stuff. So
And I think that's what we're trying to make happen now.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that we do kind of plan out where the.
yeah, I think it's a great idea. That space isn't used after school at all, hardly.
And so I guess that's the thing is as rec, let's say I wanted to do an after school program. Am I able to just open up the community center and run that program out of there? Or will I have to
You have to
check
book-
with the town hall first? You know what I mean? Like those are,
Yeah, you have to tell me you're gonna do it, because we actually might have somebody renting it, or the library's using it. There's a calendar that we
Got it.
fill up every month. That's all it is. It just book it, and then it's there. But you know, to be spontaneous is the problem. You can't really be spontaneous. You have to book it.
okay. The other thing too is maybe the designations of those rooms. Because when I first joined, the room was only used for rec committee meetings, and there was some rec stuff mixed in with other program stuff. So I don't know if maybe just having that as always just an isolated room for recreation, or, you know, a different segment. I don't.
That big room, the what I call the classroom, or the one with the table.
Any of them. So the one with the table, like, could we maybe set that up as just being that kind of rec dedicated area? So people could come in and, you know, I can schedule office hours for myself or Kelly to be there, and then they can come in and talk to us about stuff. Or do we want that to be kind of just in anybody use space as
No,
well as the big
that was the original intent, once we took it over from the Oddfellows, was that was going to become Recreation's office, the room to the left of the screen. That was going to become the office. The right room was, what you're referring to as the classroom, was dedicated to the seniors. And they set that up the way they wanted. So, you know,
But then they used the large room instead of that room.
yeah, because
they preferred
supposedly
the
it was closer to the sink and the refrigerator and the teapot, but
Yeah.
you know, that I don't think is cast in stone either, but
Agreed.
being one of those seniors who everybody's sending these newsletters to.
But they have a great time. You know, they come on Wednesday for anywhere from 2 to 4 hours sometimes. They play cards, they play board games, they have tea. They would like more programs. And at Christmas, we have a big banquet. And so we use the community center for that on those days, but they meet pretty much every Wednesday.
And that's one of the things is if they have that room under their control, we would definitely want to maintain that. And then the other room, like I said, I mean, it has been used for recreation. I would love to be able to use that as kind of my room for recreation. And then the big room would be the one that's always scheduled. And then we can always run programs together and utilize all the spaces if need be, if somebody needs all those rooms, like, and I can set something up where, you know, they can do that. I'm not opposed to doing that as well. But I think definitely being able to go up there, because it might be a small program, like Kelly mentioned, like the arts and crafts or the chess club, or even, I mean, I know now it might be a little different, but if we ended up doing a study group because people asked me about use of the library socially distant for access to internet when there's, you know, a power outage or something in some places. And, you know, being able myself having the key to go up there, open it up, and I could monitor that, or, you know, have someone, whoever's heading that program, monitor it. You know, I think that makes sense. So, but like I said, that's something that I think has to be determined by the town, because that building is what you guys run.
Doesn't seem like you're in competition with anyone for the small room with the table in it to me as your office. I don't know if that means you wouldn't share it with other groups at all and it's your exclusive office, but I know that a few groups do meet in there, but there's no reason they couldn't meet in larger rooms too.
Fossil meets back there, don't they?
Yeah, but I mean, Fossil could meet in the large room or the not as large room, the medium room.
Okay. Well,
Sure.
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
And it seems like Kelly, you and Michael, as you guys start coming up with programming for that space, maybe Wednesdays booked after schools or something, but it seems like there's a lot of open room for locking in time slots in there, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe the seniors on Wednesdays can teach the cooking class.
Oh,
To get-
Well,
double.
I think it's huge too to get the kids working with the seniors and stuff. I mean, before COVID, it was kind of my idea to get something down at the rec where you even do something where it's a senior to senior, you know, night out. So you have the seniors from the high school, you know, helping host a party down at the beach for the senior citizens in the community for one of our Friday nights at the rec and stuff like that. So, I'm definitely fine with running programs that help both. You know, I want all the programs I run, I want to be scalable. So, you know, if you want to learn how to swim and you're 80 years old, you know, we're hopefully going to have a swim program. So come on down, we'll teach you how to swim and learn the basics. So
I mean, I feel that you're very adaptable to like trying out some of these things, as well as Don saying, like merging them all back together. And like if Jen agrees, Sarah, about like having Mike be the liaison even for the camp and the beach, like I'm sure Mike is okay. You're okay with that stuff, right?
Yeah, I think, and the main reason I wrote the letter too is like, I'm super flexible. I'm willing to work and do everything because I really enjoy living here. I enjoy the different programs that we do that I benefited from as a kid. But I also know, you know, maybe 10 years from now, I'm going to be too busy to be able to do this. And I think there should be a little bit more structure in place. So the next rec director is able to just walk into the job, know exactly what is needed of them, and they can follow the structures that still provide all these programs. And I think having the clarity of that, you know, be kind of set in stone by you guys makes that much easier for the long term.
Unless somebody has something else, I thought I would read back what I've written down from this meeting so far and see if we have any holes in it, because the hope would be to get this structure rolling at the next town board meeting on Thursday and to make a vote. So what I wrote was 7-member committee with 2-year appointments, members selected by the town board with, and I put input from the rec director because I think the director should be part of that conversation. Committee roles: liaisons between camp and beach, seniors and adult rec, recruit volunteers, oversee sports, playground committee chair, and the recreation director is the liaison to the camp, senior rec classes, and the beach. And then the last thing I put down was that the 2 rooms in the back of the community center, the left room would be now designated for the recreation office to have office hours. And the right room, we could make the senior, senior center. We could make the right room the senior center. And then town secretary will book use of the community center. And that's just all she'll do is book it. But she has to always also be in charge of the senior trips and booking events for the seniors.
So who gets control over and precedence over the main room if there's a conflict for use in there?
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
I honestly think if, the seniors have their room and they can be accommodated in there, I know I can easily be accommodated in just that rec room. If someone has a big function, myself personally, like if someone's having an anniversary party or something like that, I'm okay with you doing my rec stuff remotely, not having to walk through their thing into that room. But at the same time, like in a worst case scenario, I don't think it's super difficult for me to respectfully walk along that wall and then just, go in, grab what I need and then leave without really disturbing a function. So I think that I don't see, for me personally, that being a huge issue of, the dual use at the same time.
I just think though the medium room, instead of putting it back to the seniors, if they already abandoned that for the refrigerator and the sink being closer in the other room, I still really like the idea of that being set up as like a virtual classroom, Zoom, something if somebody needs a workspace or, that the town can provide that back there. So that's my input on that instead of making it designated,
Well, the other thing is too, is if the seniors need to store their stuff and they're falling back under recreation, a good portion of that room, I don't know if you guys are super familiar with it, but when you go right in that room, there's kind of that whole side there that isn't taken up by the table. I mean, that could be a storage for some of the senior stuff that they have there. And then they treat it for their purposes as kind of a closet where they would just grab their stuff and then bring it out into that big room. And then you still have your media center on the one side that might also be used for the after school rec programs, stuff like that.
Yeah, that big room is the big classroom would be perfect for studying or chess club. Any of that stuff that Kelly mentioned would be really great. Just because it's a little more, it's right next to the router, but it's also more contained. It's easier to hear. There's an echo in the big room that's sometimes tricky. And there's a bunch of computers in that room that were bought for the seniors that when I started walking in there to look around, we're all piled up in a corner. I don't know what happened to that situation, but I know they were playing ping pong in there and I think it all got shoved somewhere. So they're still there. There's still printers and computers there. I don't know if they were, how old they are.
Yeah. And I think for myself personally, for recreation, I definitely think just that left room being dedicated for recreation purposes. And like I said, I'll be able to help as much as I can with the senior programs in terms of they need a place to put whatever materials they need for that stuff. I can totally work with that, but I really would like that spot for the office hours. And then the other two rooms, that would be as you folks see fit. The other thing is, Dara, on your notes, when I first wrote this, I thought 2 years, but after thinking about it more, I think 3 years is a little bit better.
Okay.
And the reason I think 3 years would be better, and this is just kind of what I wrote down more recently, was that if you do 3-year terms, people who are newer to the committee, I would say about 3 of those, maybe they start off with a 3-year term. Then, you have others, 3 of them would start off with a 2-year term. And then you'd have one more with a 1-year term. So that way you're not replacing the entire committee all at once every single time. And then so that way next year, one person, whoever it is randomly selected, would just have to reapply, send their letter of interest and you know, it's an opportunity for other people to also, you know, put their letter in to be considered. And then, you know, 2 years from now, three spots would be open. And then 3 years from now, you know, 3 new spots would be open.
So that you're rotating it.
Yeah, so it's constantly rotating. And then also we would include that if a member resigns, that new person filling that position would be starting a new 3-year term from that position, because I would be assuming, you know, it's a whole new year, and then you wouldn't fall into that realm of people constantly withdrawing or stuff like that. And then if it ended up being synced up, you know, it would have to be, you know, like a decade from now before it even became an issue of everybody being replaced every 3 years. But I think kind of doing that rotating basis with the random terms, and then, you know, it just keeps them motivated. Because if you do 2 years, I feel like first getting involved, it kind of takes you, and I mean, it was a little more unorganized then, but it took like a year to kind of get the bearings. And then by the second year, you have more responsibility and know what's going on. And then to have it just over in 2, I feel like might be a little stressful for some. So I think a 3-year kind of lets people get in, settle down, try and, you know, do what they want to do, present their ideas the way they'd like to have them executed. And then, so that would just be my kind of change to what I had told you before, from the 2 years, make it 3 years.
Great, okay.
I believe we also should have a residency requirement in there for members of the board.
The committee?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I agree with that.
I don't either, because we have such a large school district that
I know.
I would say school district, but not town residency, because why are you gonna?
Each one of these towns has their own rec department.
Well, some don't.
No, they don't. Yeah.
My only input on that is there are some teachers in our district who would be willing to get involved. They don't necessarily live here, but they're really invested in the community. The other thing is too, is although other towns have rec programs, when I run our basketball program, I have people from 6 different area codes registering for our programs, because Milan, they just have a field. They don't run any programs. Gallatin itself, all residents of Gallatin, they have the same kind of reciprocity in terms of our beach pass, because I'm not even sure they have a rec program.
Yep.
So there are different things. And honestly, I think you know, it would be up to the board to kind of prioritize those people who are from here. But at the same time, there are some people who might live right outside of town. Their kids go to this school and they love going to our programs and could make a difference in it. So I'm not entirely sure you would want to make the residency requirement. I myself think it should just be people who want to be invested in Pine Plains. And even though they might not live right in the zip code, as a committee member, they're not really making any decisions with Pine Plains tax dollars. That ends up falling under my jurisdiction. So if they were like, hey, let's build a dugout for, you know, Milan's rec, that's like, I would say no to that, because we're for Pine Plains. But that's just my thought. I think it should be open to anybody who's interested, because we also have people who, you know, they have dual residences. They might, you know, have a summer home up here, so they're only here in the summertime, and then they live down in Florida as their primary residence. I don't think anybody who's applying for the committee technically falls under that, but if someone did and they wanted to, you know, help our programs, I think they should have the ability to join the committee.
What's the downside, Don?
Well, I just think it's, you know, it's representing the town. I mean, it's representing the expensive town dollars. They're making a recommendation based upon that.
I mean, the other way to look at it too, in terms of that, is if I didn't necessarily live in our zip code, but I you know, I taught and lived in a nearby town, like if I taught in our town and lived nearby, like I would still want to be involved in recreation, even though, let's say I live, you know, one town over. If I lived in Ankrum or something like that, I'd still, because honestly, we have some of the nicest facilities around in terms of scenery, hiking, all that stuff. And, you know, I mean, I honestly don't think it's a huge issue, but I think it should be open to anybody.
Me too.
Right. Is there anything else? I was going to suggest that our next step would be, I will write these notes out again for everybody, so it's really clear for Thursday. And we can refine it on Thursday if anybody has any really good ideas or we want to further discuss it. But it would be really great to go into executive session to discuss the people who have sent in letters of intent. Does anybody have a
I'll make-
problem with that, or?
I mean, do we want to bring Michael in for a little while to get his recommendations? And then us discuss it amongst ourselves?
Sounds good to me.
Don, are you okay with that, Sarah?
Yeah. Yeah, so you want a motion to go into executive session now?
And then we'll need one to adjourn. We need one to go into executive session and one to adjourn after.
I move that we go to executive session to discuss personnel issue.
I second it. Judy, you there? Actually, is Judy still here?
I don't know. I don't see her on she might be watching on YouTube.
Okay, and I move to
Adjourn after.
to adjourn after the executive session.
I second it.
All in favor of all these motions?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
very much.
You've
All
got
right.
another motion in there also of coming out of executive session before you can have a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
I think you
I
said
move
that.
that we, okay.
I think you said that already, Sarah. That was in there someplace.
We bundled it. It was a bundled package.
All right.
All right, I'm going to turn off the recording, and Kelly will say goodbye and thank you for coming. And I will get off.